I stood in the dimly lit room of my grandmother's old house, the air thick with dust and memories. The scent of aged wood and old books wrapped around me like a familiar blanket, offering both comfort and a sense of unease. My fingers traced the intricate carvings on the frame of the mirror that had been passed down through generations of my family. The glass surface glimmered faintly, hinting at secrets hidden beneath its reflective sheen. "Wow, Claire, that's something else," Lucas said, stepping beside me. His eyes were wide with curiosity, and I could see the reflection of the mirror capturing his expression, creating a duplicate image of wonder. "It's huge," I nodded, my gaze locked onto the mirror. "Yeah, it is. My grandmother always said it had a story, but she never really shared the details." I took a step closer, feeling an unexplainable pull toward it. The details on the frame were mesmerizing, floral patterns entwined with symbols I didn't recognize. I can't help but feel connected to it. Lucas leaned in, peering at the surface. Connected how? Like sentimental value? He raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk on his face. "Maybe more than that," I murmured, the words escaping my lips before I could really process them. It's calling to me." Suddenly, a flicker in the glass caught my attention, and I squinted, trying to decipher what I had just seen. There it was again, a shadow darting across the surface, quick and elusive. My heart raced, and I stepped back, bumping into Lucas. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, concern etching his features. "I saw something," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. "In the mirror." Lucas looked at me, a mix of skepticism and intrigue in his eyes. "Like what? A ghost?" I shook my head, still fixated on the mirror. "I don't know. It was just a shadow. It moved so quickly, almost like it was trying to get my attention. Maybe it's just a trick of the light," he suggested, though I could tell he was just trying to soothe my nerves. "Mirrors can be weird like that." "Yeah, maybe," I replied, but deep down, I felt it was more than that. I reached out again, my fingers brushing against the cool glass, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. "I think I need to know more about this mirror. There has to be a history behind it." "Then let's dig in," Lucas said, his enthusiasm contagious. "Your family must have kept records or something. What if there are letters, journals, anything?" "Good idea," I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. I remember my grandmother mentioning a box of letters from my great-grandmother. Maybe they hold some clues. The two of us made our way to the attic, the wooden stairs creaking under our weight. Dust motes danced in the narrow beams of light filtering through the small window, and the air was thick with nostalgia. I rummaged through old boxes, my heart pounding with anticipation. When I finally uncovered a weathered wooden box, adorned with brass hinges, I felt a rush of excitement. "Is this it?" Lucas asked, peering over my shoulder. "Yeah, this has to be it." I carefully opened the box, revealing a collection of yellowed letters tied together with a frayed ribbon. My fingers trembled as I picked up the top letter, its handwriting elegant yet faded. "What does it say?" Lucas urged, leaning closer to get a glimpse. I unfolded the letter, my eyes scanning the delicate cursive. "It's from my great-grandmother, and she mentions something about a pact." I paused, my heart racing. "And a price to pay." "A pact? Like a deal with the devil or something?" Lucas joked, but I could see the seriousness in his eyes. I shrugged, the weight of the words sinking in. "I don't know, but it sounds ominous." I continued reading, piecing together fragments of my family's past. As the sun began to set, casting eerie shadows across the attic, I felt a sense of urgency. "We need to find out what this means," I said, folding the letter carefully and placing it back in the box. "I have to talk to my family about it, but I want to understand it first." Lucas nodded, his expression serious. "Let's meet up tomorrow and do some research. I can help you dig deeper." "Thanks, Lucas," I said, grateful for his support. I need to know what I'm dealing with. There's something about that mirror that feels important, and I can't shake this feeling that it's tied to our family. That night, as I lay in bed, Sleep eluded me. Images of the mirror and the shadow danced in my mind, swirling like smoke. I couldn't help but wonder about the pact my great-grandmother had mentioned. What had she sacrificed, and what did it mean for me? The next day, I found myself at the local library, surrounded by rows of dusty books and the comforting scent of old paper. I could hear the faint rustle of pages being turned and the low hum of conversations in the background. I was determined to uncover the history of the Monroe family and the secrets that lay buried with the mirror. "Claire," Lucas called, waving me over to a table stacked with books. "Check this out." I approached him, curiosity piqued. "What did you find?" I was looking through some genealogical records and stumbled upon this. He handed me a thick book filled with photos and handwritten notes. It's about the Monroe family and their ties to something called the Guardians of Light. My heart raced as I flipped through the pages. The Guardians of Light? What is that? Lucas leaned in closer, his finger tracing a passage. "It seems like they were some kind of secret order. They had a rivalry with your family, and there are mentions of curses and dark shadows." I felt a chill run through me. "Curses? Shadows? Yeah, it's all really vague," he admitted. "But it sounds like your family has had some serious issues with these guardians. Maybe they're linked to the mirror." "Maybe," I said, my mind racing with possibilities. "We need to find out more. I can't just ignore this." As we continued our research, I felt a growing sense of dread mixed with determination. The more I uncovered, the more I realized the weight of my family's past rested heavily on my shoulders. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. I needed to confront whatever darkness awaited me. Later that evening, I met up with Lucas again, and we decided to visit my great-grandmother's old house. As we drove through the winding roads, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The trees loomed like ancient sentinels, their branches reaching out as if to warn me of something. When we arrived, the house stood still, its windows dark and silent. I felt a wave of nostalgia wash over me, but it was tinged with something darker. The moment I stepped inside, the air felt heavy, as if the walls were holding their breath, waiting for us to uncover their secrets. "Are you sure about this?" Lucas asked, glancing around the dimly lit room. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I have to know. Whatever is going on, it's tied to my family." As we explored the house, I noticed the mirror in the corner of the room, its surface gleaming ominously. I felt a tremor of fear ripple through me, but I couldn't back down now. I approached it, my heart pounding in my chest. "Claire, be careful," Lucas warned, standing a few steps behind me. I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. "I need to understand what this really is." I reached out, my fingers grazing the cool glass once more. As I did, a flicker of movement caught my eye, and I froze. The shadow was back, darting just out of sight, leaving me feeling both terrified and drawn in. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Lucas stepped closer, his expression serious. "What did you see?" "The shadow. It moved again," I said, my heart racing. "It feels like it's trying to tell me something. Maybe it's a warning," he suggested, concern etched on his face. "Or maybe it's a sign," I replied, my curiosity igniting once more. "I have to figure this out. I can't just walk away from it." As I stood there, staring into the depths of the mirror, I felt a strange connection, as if the shadow held pieces of my family's history, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover the truth. I knew this was just the beginning, and whatever lay ahead would change everything. With Lucas by my side, I was ready to face whatever the mirror had in store for us. As night fell, I found myself sitting at my cluttered desk, a dim lamp casting a warm glow over the scattered pages of my research. The air in my room was thick with anticipation and a hint of unease. The mirror that had belonged to my grandmother loomed over me, its ornate frame glinting in the low light, the intricate carvings whispering secrets of the past. I had spent the last few days trying to make sense of the feelings it stirred within me, a connection that felt as old as time itself. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Lucas's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me from my reverie. He leaned against the doorframe, his brow furrowed with concern. I glanced up at him, my heart racing. We have to, Lucas. There's something about that mirror, something more than just its beauty. It's like it's alive. I can't just ignore it. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I get that, but it's just a mirror, right? What if we're digging up things best left buried? I shook my head, frustration bubbling within me. But what if it's not just a mirror? What if it's a gateway to understanding my family's past? My grandmother had it for a reason, and now it's mine. Okay, he said, raising his hands defensively. Let's just take it slow. We can start by looking for more information about it. I'm with you on this. We turned our attention back to the pages spread before us. The old letters I had found in my grandmother's attic were scattered across the desk, inked in delicate cursive, hinting at secrets buried deep within my family's history. I picked up one of the letters, its edges worn and yellowed, and began to read aloud. To my dearest Eleanor, the pact we made was not one of darkness but of protection. The shadows that linger are not to be feared but understood. They come with a price. My voice trailed off as I felt a chill run down my spine. What do you think she meant by the shadows? Lucas asked, his curiosity piqued. I don't know, I admitted, my heart racing, but it sounds ominous. There's something about a price to pay. What kind of price? As if on cue, a flicker of movement caught my eye in the mirror. I leaned closer, my breath hitching in my throat. There it was again, a shadow flitting just out of sight, almost as if it were trying to communicate with me. Lucas noticed my sudden stillness. Claire? What's wrong? I tore my gaze away from the mirror, swallowing hard. I saw something, a shadow. It moved. It was like it wanted to show me something. Lucas's eyes widened, a mix of intrigue and concern flashing across his face. Maybe it's trying to communicate. Shadows can be symbolic, right? Maybe it's connected to your family's past, something they didn't want to reveal. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. What if the shadow was tied to the pact mentioned in the letters? What if it was a remnant of whatever my family had gone through? The idea was both exhilarating and terrifying. Let's keep looking, I said, my voice barely a whisper. There has to be more. If my Basevo wrote about a ritual to uncover the truth, then we need to find it. We delved deeper into the letters and papers. Hours passed, and the room was filled with the soft rustle of old parchment and the faint scent of dust. We stumbled across a diary, its cover worn and weathered. My heart raced as I opened it, revealing pages filled with my Basevo's meticulous handwriting. Listen to this, I said, excitement bubbling in my chest. She talks about a ritual, to find the truth and understand the shadows. Lucas leaned over my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. What does it say? Does it tell you how to perform it? I flipped through the pages, my fingers trembling. It looks like a series of steps, but oh no, the last page is torn. It must have been important. Frustration washed over me. Why would someone tear out the last page? It's so infuriating. Maybe they didn't want anyone to find out, Lucas suggested, his tone thoughtful. Or perhaps they were protecting something. We should keep looking for more clues. I nodded, determination surging within me. Let's meet again tomorrow night. We'll search until we find what we need. I can't let this go. It's too important. As we made plans to reconvene, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That night, as I lay in bed, sleep eluded me. Shadows danced on the walls, flickering with every creak of the house. I closed my eyes, trying to force myself to relax, but then I heard it, a soft whisper, just on the edge of my consciousness. Claire. My heart raced as I opened my eyes, the darkness around me thickening. I glanced at the mirror, and for a moment, I thought I saw it again. The shadow lurking just beyond the glass, its presence undeniable. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to sleep, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. I felt a pull, an urge to confront whatever it was that had taken residence in my thoughts. As the hours passed, the whispers faded, but a sense of dread lodged itself in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadow was waiting, watching, as if it held the answers I sought or perhaps the truths I dreaded. The following day dragged on, my mind consumed with thoughts of the mirror and the mystery surrounding it. I found myself at the library, poring over books about my family history and anything I could find about shadows and their significance. I stumbled upon a dusty tome that mentioned an ancient order called the Guardians of Light. My heart raced as I read about their role in protecting against darkness and their long-standing rivalry with families like the Monroe. What on earth did I just uncover? I whispered to myself, feeling a chill creep up my spine. Lucas found me deep in thought, his brow raised as he approached. "Hey, anything interesting?" I looked up, my voice shaky. "There's a secret order involved in our family's history. They've been at odds with the Monroes for generations, and now I'm beginning to think our family's shadow might be tied to them. Do you think they're connected to the pact?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "Maybe, but it feels bigger than that. I can't shake the feeling that there's something dark lurking just out of sight. We need to figure this out before it's too late." Lucas nodded, determination shining in his eyes. "Then let's go to your Basavos house. We might find something there that can help." As we drove through the familiar streets, I felt the weight of my family's legacy pressing down on me. With each mile, the unease grew, and I couldn't help but glance at the mirror resting on the back seat. What truths awaited us in that old house? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever lay ahead. "We're going to uncover the truth, Lucas, no matter what it takes." And with that resolve, we pressed on, ready to face the shadows that awaited us. The morning light streamed through my bedroom window, casting soft shadows across the floor. I sat at my desk, the old wooden surface covered in a mix of notebooks and books I had pulled from the shelves the night before. The air felt charged, as if the very dust particles were whispering secrets long forgotten. My heart raced with anticipation. Today, I would delve into the mysteries surrounding the mirror I had inherited from my grandmother. I took a deep breath and stood, my mind replaying the moment I had first laid eyes on the mirror. It was an imposing piece, with intricate carvings that seemed to dance in the light. As I leaned closer, I could still feel that strange connection, an unexplainable pull that drew me in. The fleeting shadow I had seen reflected in its surface haunted my thoughts. What did it mean? Who was it? With determination, I made my way to the local library. It was a quiet place, the scent of old books mingling with the faint smell of polished wood. I approached the research section, where I had spent countless hours lost in the pages of history. My fingers brushed over the spines of various books until I found one that caught my eye. The Legends of the Monroe Family. I pulled it from the shelf, my curiosity piqued. As I flipped through the pages, I found references to my family's past that I had never heard before. There were tales of rivalries, love, and inexplicable events that surrounded the Monroe name. But what struck me most was the mention of a secret order known as the Guardians of Light. My heart raced as I read about their long-standing feud with my ancestors. What could this mean for me? "Hey, Claire!" A familiar voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. It was Lucas, my best friend since childhood. He had a knack for appearing just when I needed a distraction. "Lucas, you won't believe what I found," I exclaimed, my excitement bubbling over. "What is it?" he replied, leaning against the bookshelf, his dark hair falling over his forehead. I quickly explained everything about the mirror, the shadow, and the letters I had discovered from my great-grandmother. His brow furrowed as he listened intently. "You know, I had a weird experience with reflections when I was younger," Lucas said, his voice low. "I could have sworn I saw something looking back at me. Something not quite right." My eyes widened in surprise. "You too? What happened?" "I don't really remember all the details," he admitted, scratching the back of his neck. "Just that it felt like something was trying to get out or communicate with me. It scared me a lot." "That's exactly how I felt," I said, my mind racing. "What do you think it means?" "I don't know, but it sounds like we should investigate this together," Lucas suggested, his green eyes sparkling with intrigue. Maybe we can find out more about your family and whatever that shadow is. I nodded, feeling a sense of camaraderie that made the prospect of exploring these dark secrets a little less daunting. Let's do it. I want to know everything. The rest of the day passed in a blur of research. We spent hours at the library, poring over dusty tomes and fragile documents. Eventually, we stumbled upon a collection of old letters written by my great-grandmother. The words danced off the pages, revealing a world filled with magic and mystery, but also fear. She wrote about a pact she had made, and each mention sent chills down my spine. "Claire, look at this," Lucas exclaimed, pointing to a passage that detailed the shadow. "It says here that the Monroe family has always been connected to it. It's like a guardian of sorts, but there's a price to pay." "A price?" I echoed, my heart racing. What kind of price? I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that settled in my stomach. The more we uncovered, the more questions appeared. I felt as if we were peeling back layers of a long-buried truth, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what lay beneath. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Lucas and I decided to take a break. We stepped outside, the cool evening air wrapping around us like a comforting blanket. "Do you think we're getting in over our heads?" I asked, glancing at him sideways. "Maybe," he replied thoughtfully, "but isn't it worth it? You deserve to know your family's history, Claire." "Yeah, I guess you're right," I replied, feeling a spark of determination igniting within me. "But I can't shake the feeling that something is watching us. Let's meet again tomorrow night. We can go through the rest of the letters and see if we can find any clues about the ritual mentioned." Lucas suggested, his enthusiasm infectious. "Sounds good to me," I said, giving him a small smile. "But for now, I think I need to rest. I've had enough of shadows for one day." As I returned home, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. The shadow in the mirror lingered in my mind, and I couldn't help but wonder what secrets it held. That night, as I lay in bed, the darkness wrapped around me like a shroud, and I closed my eyes, hoping to escape the weight of the unknown. But sleep eluded me. Instead, I was plagued by vivid nightmares. I found myself standing in front of the mirror, the dark figure reflected back at me. It seemed to pulse with life, its movements fluid and enticing. I could feel its gaze boring into my soul, and I was filled with an overwhelming sense of being watched. "Claire," a voice whispered, echoing through the confines of my mind. "You must remember." I jolted awake, my heart racing. The room was dark and still, but I could swear I felt the presence of something lurking in the shadows. I glanced at the mirror across the room, the surface reflecting only my own frightened expression. "Just a dream," I whispered to myself, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. A sense of urgency gripped me. I needed to uncover the truth about the shadow and my family's past. The next day dragged on, and every tick of the clock felt like an eternity. I couldn't focus on anything but the mystery that awaited me. When night finally came, I met with Lucas again, our shared determination fueling our quest. "Ready for another round of research?" he asked, a grin spreading across his face as he walked into my living room. "Absolutely," I replied, my heart racing with anticipation. We settled in, surrounded by the letters and notes we had gathered. As we sifted through the delicate papers, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. We were on the brink of discovering something monumental, something that could change everything I thought I knew about my family and myself. As I read through the letters, a passage caught my eye. "The shadows are not to be feared, but understood. They hold the key to our legacy." My breath caught in my throat. What did my great-grandmother mean? "Lucas, come look at this," I called, my voice tinged with excitement. He leaned over my shoulder, scanning the words. "It sounds like she was trying to warn you," he said, his voice low. "Maybe the shadow is more than just a curse. Maybe it's a part of who you are." A chill ran down my spine at the thought. If the shadow was tied to my identity, what did that mean for me? Would I have to confront it? "Let's visit the old house tomorrow," I suggested, feeling a mix of fear and determination. I think that's where we'll find the answers we need. Are you sure about this? Lucas asked, concern etched on his face. I have to know, I replied, my resolve strengthening. We need to uncover the truth about the ritual and what my great-grandmother was trying to protect. As we made our plans, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom that loomed over us. The shadow was waiting. I could sense it, and deep down, I knew that our journey was only just beginning. As we approached the old Monroe house, a chill ran down my spine. The air felt thick with secrets, and the evening sun cast long shadows that seemed to whisper warnings. Lucas walked beside me, his brow furrowed in concentration. I could tell he felt the weight of this moment as much as I did. Do you think we'll find anything useful? He asked, breaking the silence. I hope so, I replied, forcing a smile. This place holds the answers to so many questions. About my family, the mirror, and that shadow. As we reached the weathered front door, I noticed a symbol etched into the wood. A circle with rays extending outward, reminiscent of the sun. A symbol of the Guardians of Light. My heart raced. Lucas, look! I pointed, my voice barely above a whisper. That's the symbol I read about in the library. He stepped closer, examining it. It's them, the order that has been watching your family for generations. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows beside the door. A tall man, dressed in a dark coat, stepped forward with an air of authority that made my stomach twist. You shouldn't be here, he warned, his voice deep and ominous. The mirror must be destroyed. I felt my pulse quicken, a mix of fear and defiance flooding my veins. Who are you? I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. And why should I listen to you? I am a member of the Guardians of Light, he replied, his eyes piercing into mine. Your family has been burdened by the shadow for too long. It is a menace, a curse. Destroy the mirror, and you will free yourself from its grasp. I took a step back, my mind racing. But you don't understand. It's not just a curse. It's part of my family's history. My Basevo made a pact with that shadow. I need to know what it means. Pacts come with a price, he warned, his tone shifting to one of urgency. The shadow will demand more than you can give. It feeds on fear, and it will consume you if you allow it. Lucas placed a hand on my shoulder, attempting to ground me. Claire, maybe we should... No, I interrupted, feeling a surge of determination. I will not destroy my family's legacy without understanding it first. The shadow, it's more than just a curse. It's connected to who I am. The Guardian's expression darkened. You are playing with forces you cannot comprehend. The shadow is not a protector. It is a predator. Maybe... I shot back, my voice rising. But it's my predator. I will face it, and I will uncover the truth. The Guardian narrowed his eyes, assessing me. You're a brave girl, but bravery doesn't replace wisdom. You think you can handle this? You think you can control what's been set in motion? It's not about control, I replied, my heart pounding fiercely in my chest. It's about understanding. I can't let fear dictate my actions. I need to know what happened to my Basevo and why the shadow is tied to our family. He hesitated, and in that brief moment of silence, I felt a flicker of hope. Please, I urged, help me understand. I need to know the truth. If the shadow is a threat, I'll deal with it. But I can't do that without knowing what I'm up against. The Guardian studied me for what felt like an eternity, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. Finally, he sighed, a resigned expression washing over his face. Very well, but be warned. The truth can be more dangerous than the shadow itself. I nodded, feeling a mix of apprehension and excitement. Thank you. I need to know everything. He gestured for us to follow him inside. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway lined with portraits of stern-looking ancestors. I felt their eyes on me, as if they were judging my resolve. Lucas walked beside me, his presence a steadying force. Where do we start? I asked, glancing at the Guardian. In the library, he replied, leading us down the corridor. There are records that may shed light on your family's history and the pact made with the shadow. As we entered the library, the musty scent of old books enveloped us. The room was filled with towering shelves, each one groaning under the weight of dusty tomes. The Guardian moved to a section in the far corner, pulling out a large, leather-bound book that looked as though it hadn't been opened in decades. "This," he said, placing the book on a table, "contains accounts of the Monroe family and their dealings with the shadow. Read carefully. The answers you seek may lie within." I opened the book, its pages crackling under my fingers. The text was written in elegant script, detailing the history of the Monroe family. My heart raced as I read about the initial pact made by my Basevo, a young woman who sought protection for her family during turbulent times. The story spoke of dark forces and the shadow that emerged as a guardian, but the tone shifted as I read further. "The shadow is not merely a protector," I muttered, my eyes scanning the page. "It demands loyalty and sacrifice, a price for its power." Lucas leaned closer, reading over my shoulder. "What kind of sacrifices? Lives?" I whispered, feeling a chill creep down my spine. "It doesn't just protect, it takes." The more I read, the more it seems like the shadow has been feeding off the family's fears and regrets. The Guardian nodded grimly. "Yes, it's a dangerous cycle. The more fear it instills, the stronger it becomes, and the more it demands in return." I closed the book, my mind racing with thoughts. But my Basevo, she had to have known this. Why would she make such a pact? "Desperation often leads to unwise decisions," the Guardian replied. "But understanding the past is essential. You must come to terms with what your family has endured." I took a deep breath, staring into the shadows that danced along the walls of the library. "I need to confront this. There are too many unanswered questions, and I can't ignore them any longer." Lucas squeezed my hand, his support a solid anchor. "We'll figure this out together, Claire. We need to find a way to break this cycle." "Together?" I echoed, feeling a surge of determination. "But first, we need to uncover everything we can about the ritual she performed. It may hold the key to facing the shadow." As we continued to search through the library, I felt the weight of my family's history pressing down on me. The deeper I delved into the accounts of my ancestors, the more I realized that understanding the pact was not just about confronting the shadow. It was about reclaiming my identity and my family's legacy. "Claire," Lucas called, pulling me from my thoughts. "Look at this." He pointed to a faded map tucked between the pages of a book. "It shows the locations of old family landmarks. Maybe one of these places will lead us to more answers." I studied the map, my heart racing at the thought of discovering more about my Basevo's past. "We should visit these places. Each location could have a piece of the puzzle." "Let's do it," Lucas said, his eyes shining with determination. "We'll uncover the truth together." With renewed purpose, I closed the book and set it aside. The path ahead was uncertain, but I knew one thing. I would face whatever awaited me in the shadows, armed with the knowledge of my family's history and the courage to confront my fears. Together, we would unravel the enigma surrounding the mirror and the shadow, and, hopefully, find a way to reclaim our legacy once and for all. As I stood in the dimly lit room, the air thick with anticipation, my gaze fell upon the imposing mirror that had belonged to my grandmother. It was a magnificent piece, adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. I felt an inexplicable connection to it, as if it were a portal to something greater. As I leaned in closer, the soft glow of the candlelight flickered, casting shadows that danced across the glass surface. That's when I saw it. A fleeting shadow, just at the edge of my vision. My heart raced and I took a step back, startled. What was that? I muttered to myself, my curiosity piqued. I reached out to touch the mirror's cool surface, and a shiver ran down my spine. There was something alive within it, a presence that seemed to pulse with energy. I couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror held more than just reflections. It was a keeper of stories, a guardian of my family's legacy. Determined to uncover its mysteries, I began to sift through the boxes of my grandmother's belongings. Among the trinkets and photographs, I stumbled upon a small wooden box, its latch worn with age. Inside, I discovered a collection of faded letters, each one meticulously penned by my great-grandmother. The words spoke of a pact, a bargain made in desperation, and a price that had to be paid. My heart sank as I read the haunting phrases, each one drawing me deeper into the enigma of my family's past. I needed to share this with Lucas. He had always been my confidant, the one person I could count on to dive into the unknown with me. I called him over, my voice trembling with excitement and fear. "Lucas, you won't believe what I found. It's about the mirror. It's more than just a family heirloom. There's a pact, and I think it's connected to the shadow I saw." Lucas raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A pact? Like a deal with the devil or something?" He laughed, but I could see the curiosity in his eyes. "Tell me everything." I recounted the details of the letters, the mentions of a shadow, and the cryptic warnings about the price my family had paid. As I spoke, I noticed Lucas's expression shift. "You know, I've had strange experiences with mirrors too when I was a kid," he admitted, his tone serious. "I always thought it was just my imagination, but now I'm not so sure." "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning forward. I would see figures in the reflection that weren't there when I turned around, shadows that seemed to move on their own. It freaked me out, and I eventually stopped looking into mirrors, he confessed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Maybe it's all connected," I said, a sense of urgency rising within me. "We have to investigate further. There has to be more information about this." That night, as we sat surrounded by the remnants of my family's history, the atmosphere grew thicker, charged with a strange energy. We pored over the letters, piecing together fragments of the past, when suddenly, the shadow in the mirror caught my eye again. It moved, almost as if it were alive, swirling and curling in a way that sent chills down my spine. "Claire, did you see that?" Lucas pointed toward the mirror, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, it's like it's trying to communicate with us," I replied, my heart racing. "What does it want?" We continued to search, and as we rummaged through the boxes, we found a worn leather diary. It belonged to my great-grandmother, and its pages were filled with the struggles and sacrifices she had made. But the last page was torn, a jagged edge that left a gaping hole in the narrative. "I can't believe it ends like this," Lucas said, disappointment etched on his face. "What was she trying to say? We need to find out. We can't stop now," I insisted, determination flooding my veins. "Let's meet again tomorrow. We'll find more clues. I just know it." That night, as I lay in bed, the shadows loomed larger in my mind. I drifted into a restless sleep, plagued by nightmares of the shadow from the mirror. It hovered over me, its dark form stretching and contorting, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I woke up gasping, a cold sweat clinging to my skin. I needed answers, but the fear of what I might uncover weighed heavily on my heart. The next day, I decided to visit the local library. I had to delve deeper into the history of the Monroe family and their connection to the shadow. As I combed through dusty archives and old newspapers, a name stood out: the Guardians of Light. It was an ancient order that had a long-standing rivalry with my family. My fingers trembled as I read about their attempts to suppress the powers of the Monroe lineage. When I returned home, I found Lucas waiting for me. "I've been looking into some old family stories too," he said, his brow furrowed. "A family friend mentioned a curse that affects the Monroes, something about the shadow being tied to it." "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart racing. "Apparently, it's believed that the shadow represents all the dark things our ancestors did to survive. It's like a curse that's been passed down," he explained, his voice tense. "We need to confront this head-on, Claire. It's the only way to break the cycle." With a shared sense of purpose, we decided to visit the old house of my great-grandmother, where I hoped to find more clues about the ritual mentioned in the diary. As we approached the dilapidated structure, I felt a knot of anxiety twist in my stomach. The air was thick with energy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. As we stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted, and an icy chill swept through the room. "Look," Lucas pointed. There, etched into the door, was the emblem of the Guardians of Light. My heart raced as dread pooled in my stomach. "Do you think they know we're here?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Before we could explore further, a tall man stepped out from the shadows. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "I am a member of the Guardians of Light, and that mirror must be destroyed." "Why?" I shot back, defiance rising within me. "You don't understand what it represents for my family. I need to know the truth. You're playing with forces you don't comprehend." "Girl," he warned, his eyes narrowing. "That shadow is dangerous. It seeks vengeance. Maybe it's time someone listened to it instead of fearing it." I retorted, my heart pounding in my chest. I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As I turned back to Lucas, I felt a surge of energy wash over me. I knew then that the only way to understand my family's legacy was to confront the shadow head-on. The mirror was no longer just an object. It was a part of me, and I was ready to uncover its secrets, even if it meant facing the darkness within. The darkness of the night enveloped me like a thick blanket as I lay in bed, the shadows of my room dancing eerily in the flickering light of the bedside lamp. I had been restless for days, haunted by the enigmatic mirror that had come into my possession. It wasn't just a family heirloom. It felt alive, as if it contained a piece of my soul within its glassy depths. I had spent countless hours staring into that mirror, trying to decipher the shadows that flitted across its surface. But each time I thought I was getting closer to understanding, I felt more lost, more afraid. That night, as I lay there, a chilling whisper slithered through the silence of my room. "Claire." The voice was soft, almost melodic, yet it sent shivers down my spine. I sat up abruptly, the sheets tangling around my legs. "Who's there?" I called, my voice trembling. But there was no response, only the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. I glanced at the mirror on the wall, its surface reflecting my anxious expression. I could have sworn I saw something move within it, a fleeting shadow darting just beyond my line of sight. I shook my head, trying to dismiss it as a trick of the light. "It's just your imagination," I muttered to myself, but deep down, I felt an unsettling truth gnawing at my insides. The memory of my great-grandmother's diary loomed large in my mind. I had barely scratched the surface of the revelations contained within its pages, and now, the weight of my family's legacy felt heavier than ever. I had glimpsed the words about a pact and a price to pay, but the last page was torn, leaving me with more questions than answers. I needed to know what had happened, what my ancestors had done, and why the shadow seemed so intent on communicating with me. "Claire, are you okay?" Lucas's voice broke through my thoughts, and I turned to see him standing in the doorway, concern etched on his face. He had been my anchor throughout this ordeal, but even his presence couldn't chase away the unease that clung to me. "I don't know, Lucas," I admitted, pulling my knees to my chest. "I keep hearing things. It's like the mirror is calling to me." I gestured toward the mirror, and for a moment, I thought I saw the shadow shift again. But this time it felt more purposeful, as if it were trying to convey something urgent. Lucas stepped closer, his brow furrowed with worry. "Maybe you should take a break from it. You've been so consumed by this. It's not good for you." He reached out, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. I shrugged it off, frustration bubbling within me. "You don't understand. I can't just walk away. This is my family's history, our legacy. If I don't figure out what happened, it'll consume me." My voice cracked, and I hated how vulnerable I sounded. But the truth was, the deeper I delved into the mystery, the more I realized how intertwined my fate was with the shadow in the mirror. "Claire, I get that. I really do," Lucas replied, his tone soothing. "But what if the more you dig, the more dangerous it becomes? You've already said the shadow seems to have a mind of its own. What if it's trying to warn you, not just communicate?" His words struck a chord within me, and I felt a wave of doubt wash over me. What if it's not a warning? What if it's something else entirely? What if it's trying to show me something I need to see? I ran a hand through my hair in frustration. I can't just ignore it. Then let's approach it together, Lucas suggested, his eyes earnest. We'll figure this out as a team. You don't have to bear this burden alone. I looked into his eyes, finding a flicker of determination that mirrored my own. Okay, I said finally, my voice steadier now. But I need to confront it to understand what it wants from me. I can't keep running away. That night, I drifted into a fitful sleep, my dreams filled with visions of my great-grandmother, her face a mixture of strength and despair. I saw her standing before the mirror, a younger version of myself reflected in its depths, and the shadow loomed behind her, watching with an intensity that made my heart race. "You must understand," she whispered, her voice echoing around me. "The shadow is not your enemy. It is your truth." I jolted awake, gasping for breath. The words lingered in my mind like a haunting melody. "What do you mean?" I whispered to the empty room, the darkness pressing in on me. But there was no answer, only silence. The next day, I felt a compulsion to return to the mirror, to face whatever it had to reveal. I invited Lucas over, hoping that his presence would offer some semblance of comfort as I confronted the unknown. "I need you here with me," I said as he arrived, my voice laced with uncertainty. "Of course," he replied, his expression serious. "Just tell me what you need." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I think I need to look into the mirror again." "All right, but let's do it together. Promise me you won't do anything rash," he urged, concern etched in his features. I nodded, grateful for his support. As we approached the mirror, I felt the air grow thick with tension. My heart raced, and I could almost hear a low hum resonating from the glass. "Are you ready?" Lucas asked, his hand finding mine. I squeezed his hand, gathering courage. "As ready as I'll ever be." We stood before the mirror, our reflections staring back at us. Two young souls caught in the web of a family legacy that felt both heavy and elusive. "Okay," I said, my voice steady. "I'm going to focus on the shadow. I need to understand it. Just remember, I'm right here with you," Lucas reassured me. I took a deep breath, focusing on the surface of the mirror. First, nothing happened. The glass reflected our faces, but then, slowly, the shadow flickered into view, swirling at the edges of the glass. My heart raced as I felt an inexplicable pull, as if the shadow were beckoning me closer. "Claire, be careful," Lucas murmured, his grip tightening around my hand, but I was entranced. "I have to see," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The shadow began to coalesce, taking on a more defined shape, a dark figure that seemed to pulse with energy. Suddenly, the room felt colder, and I was enveloped in a wave of emotions: fear, sadness, and an overwhelming sense of loss. "What do you want from me?" I asked aloud, my voice trembling. The shadow seemed to shift, and a whisper echoed through my mind, filling the space between us. "Acceptance, understanding, the truth." "What truth?" I pressed, feeling a surge of frustration. "Your truth," it replied, the words echoing like a distant memory. I felt a rush of clarity as images flooded my mind, visions of my great-grandmother, her struggles, her sacrifices, and the burden of the pact she had made. She was protecting us? I breathed, realization dawning on me. But at what cost? The shadow quivered, as if in response to my thoughts. "The shadow is part of you," it spoke softly, its voice layered with both darkness and light. "You cannot run from it. You must embrace it." Tears welled in my eyes as I grappled with the implications of its words. "I don't want to be afraid anymore," I admitted, my voice cracking under the weight of my emotions. "Then face your fears," the shadow urged. "Acknowledge me, and you will find strength in your vulnerability." I turned to Lucas, my heart racing. What if it's right? What if this shadow isn't just a menace, but a part of me I need to confront? He looked at me, his eyes filled with concern and admiration. "Then we face it together. You're not alone in this, Claire. You never were." In that moment, something shifted within me. I took a step closer to the mirror, feeling the pull of the shadow growing stronger. "I'm ready," I declared, my voice steady. "I want to understand." As I focused on the shadow, I felt my fears and insecurities lay bare before me. I saw the moments of doubt, the times I had felt unworthy, the weight of expectations that had been placed upon me. The shadow was not my enemy. It was a reflection of all that I had tried to suppress, all that had shaped me into who I was. "Claire!" Lucas's voice broke through my thoughts, filled with urgency. "Are you okay?" I'm okay," I replied, tears streaming down my face. "It's just overwhelming." Suddenly, I felt a rush of warmth envelop me, pushing back against the chill that had settled in the room. The shadow began to transform, revealing glimpses of light intertwined with darkness. It wasn't just a void. It was a tapestry of my life, filled with both pain and resilience. "Embrace me, and you will find your strength," the shadow urged, its voice echoing in the depths of my mind. In that moment, I understood. I wasn't just facing a shadow. The night was thick with an unsettling silence as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The old mirror, my grandmother's heirloom, reflected the dim light from the bedside lamp. Shadows danced across the walls, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. My heart raced as I recalled the shadow I had seen in the mirror, that fleeting glimpse of darkness that felt so alive, so intent on making contact. I rolled over, trying to find comfort in the soft sheets, but sleep eluded me. The whispers began softly, like a breeze rustling through the leaves outside. "Claire," a voice, faint yet familiar, echoed in my mind. I sat up abruptly, my pulse quickening. "Lucas," I called, but there was no response. I knew he was only a few blocks away, probably fast asleep, unaware of the turmoil brewing inside me. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up, feeling the cool floor beneath my feet. The mirror loomed large on the opposite wall, its surface shimmering under the faint light. I felt an inexplicable pull towards it, a magnetic force drawing me in. "What do you want from me?" I whispered to the reflection, half expecting it to answer. As I approached, the shadow inside the glass flickered, almost as if it were alive. My breath hitched in my throat. "Show yourself," I demanded, though a part of me trembled at the thought. The room felt colder, and I could sense a shift in the air, a charged atmosphere thick with tension. Suddenly, the shadow surged forward, enveloping the mirror's surface. I gasped as I felt a powerful force tugging at me, pulling me closer. "No!" I cried out, struggling against the invisible grip. My heart raced, and I felt a mix of fear and a strange exhilaration. "What are you?" I shouted, feeling both defiant and desperate. In a flash, I was pulled into the mirror. The world around me faded, replaced by a swirling vortex of darkness and light. I felt weightless, suspended in a realm that felt both familiar and alien. Then, I found myself standing in a vast, shadowy expanse. The air was thick, heavy with unspoken words and emotions. "Claire!" The voice echoed again, clearer this time. It was soft, almost soothing. I turned to see a figure emerging from the darkness, a silhouette that seemed to pulse with energy. As it stepped closer, I recognized it, the shadow. But it wasn't a mere absence of light. It was something more complex, more profound. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What do you want with me?" "I am the reflection of your truth," it replied, its voice resonating deep within me. "I am the fears you've buried, the pain you've ignored, and the strength you've yet to embrace." I took a step back, confusion swirling in my mind. "Strength? This is just darkness," I protested, gesturing wildly. "You're a shadow, a curse." "Am I?" The shadow's voice was calm, almost challenging. "Or am I a part of you that you've refused to acknowledge? You fear me, Claire, but in doing so, you deny your own power." I shook my head, trying to process its words. "You're wrong. I'm not like you. I don't want to be consumed by darkness." "Consumed?" It echoed, a hint of amusement lacing its tone. You see me as a monster, yet I am merely a reflection of your struggles. The darkness you fear is the very essence of your strength. Embrace me, and you will find freedom. Freedom, I repeated, skepticism etched across my face. How can being consumed by my fears set me free? That doesn't make sense, does it not? The shadow moved closer, and I felt an unexpected warmth radiating from it. You fight against what you do not understand. You push away the very thing that could lead you to your true self. You are stronger than you know, Claire Monroe. The legacy of your family is not one of fear, but of resilience. I hesitated, grappling with the conflicting emotions swirling within me. Memories of my grandmother's stories flooded my mind, the tales of strength, of sacrifice, and of the shadow that had always lingered in our family's history. But my family, they suffered because of you. The pact, the curse, it's all tied to the shadows, isn't it? Your ancestors made choices, yes, but those choices do not define you. They feared me, and in their fear, they lost sight of the truth. I am not a curse. I am a guardian, a protector of all that is buried deep within you. Do you wish to honor your family's legacy, or will you continue to run from it? Honor, I echoed, feeling a flicker of something stir within me. How can I honor a legacy built on fear and darkness? The honor lies in understanding and acceptance, the shadow replied, its voice unwavering. You must confront what has been hidden, embrace your fear, and you will find the strength to transcend it. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, frustration bubbling to the surface. How can I trust you? You're just a shadow. You've tormented me. Tormented you? It asked, tilting its head slightly. Or have I merely mirrored the turmoil within? You have felt my presence because I am part of you. It is time to confront the truth of who you are, Claire. Only then can you break the cycle of fear that binds your family. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. What do I need to do? Accept me? It urged, moving closer still. Recognize that I am not your enemy, but a part of your identity. Together, we can unlock the truths that have been buried for too long. As I stood there, I felt an overwhelming rush of emotions. Fear, anger, sadness, but also a flicker of hope. I had spent so long running from the shadows of my past, trying to suppress the feelings that threatened to overwhelm me. I don't know if I can, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Then let me show you, the shadow said gently. Trust in the process. Allow yourself to feel what you have buried. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of my emotions wash over me. The memories flooded in, the moments of doubt, the fears of inadequacy, the pain of loss. I felt the shadow encircle me, its presence both comforting and terrifying. I'm scared, I confessed, feeling vulnerable. Fear is a part of the journey, it reassured me. But you are not alone. I am here, and together we can face what lies ahead. Embrace your truth, Claire. Let the shadows guide you. With a deep breath, I opened my eyes and met the shadow's gaze. For the first time, I didn't see it as a monster lurking in the corners of my mind. Instead, I saw a reflection of everything I had fought against, everything I had tried to ignore. I accept you, I said, my voice steady. I accept all of it. In that moment, the shadow shimmered, its form shifting and swirling around me. I felt a surge of energy, a connection that transcended fear. Together, we will find the strength to illuminate the darkness. It whispered, and I knew I was ready to face my legacy, ready to embrace my true self. As the shadow enveloped me, I felt a profound sense of unity. I was no longer just Claire Monroe, the girl haunted by her family's past. I was becoming something more, a fusion of light and shadow, strength and vulnerability. And in that moment, I understood that my journey was just beginning. The air was thick with anticipation as Lucas and I stood before the ancient temple, its weathered stone walls looming over us like a reminder of the weight we carried. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that danced eerily around us. There was a sense of urgency gnawing at my insides, We had to complete the ritual before the darkness consumed us. "Are you sure we should be doing this?" Lucas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. His brow was furrowed, and I could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. What if the Guardians are right? I took a deep breath, feeling the cool evening air fill my lungs. "We have to try, Lucas. If we don't confront this, the shadow will only grow stronger. We have to find the artifact and finish what my great-grandmother started." My resolve was firm, though I could hear the tremor of fear in my own voice. Lucas nodded slowly, his trust in me unwavering despite his fear. "Okay, let's do this together. We'll find the artifact and put an end to this." As we stepped closer to the entrance, I felt the weight of history pressing down on me. The temple was a relic of a past I barely understood, filled with echoes of the rivalry between my family and the Guardians of Light. I could almost hear the whispers of my ancestors urging me forward. Inside, the dim light illuminated intricate carvings on the walls that depicted scenes of battle and sacrifice. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and ancient stone. I felt a shiver run down my spine as the realization hit me. This place was alive with memories, and we were intruders in a story that had been unfolding long before we arrived. "Look at these carvings," I said, tracing my fingers over the rough surface. "They tell the story of the Monroe family and the Guardians. They must have fought over this very temple. Or they were protecting something," Lucas suggested, his eyes scanning the intricate murals. "Maybe the artifact we're looking for is more than just a tool. What if it's a key to understanding the whole situation?" "Exactly," I replied, excitement bubbling in my chest. "If we can find it, we might be able to end the cycle of pain and confusion." We moved deeper into the temple, and I could feel the atmosphere shift. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, almost as if they were alive. My heart raced with every step, but I pushed forward, driven by a sense of purpose. We had to confront the Guardians and reclaim my family's legacy. Suddenly, we heard voices echoing through the halls. It sounded like a group approaching. I exchanged a worried glance with Lucas. "We need to hide," I whispered urgently. We ducked behind a large stone pillar, our hearts pounding in unison as we listened. The voices grew louder, and soon a group of cloaked figures appeared, their faces obscured by shadow. I recognized the markings on their robes. They were the Guardians of Light. "Keep searching," one of them commanded, his voice cold and authoritative. "The artifact must not fall into their hands. The Monroe bloodline cannot be allowed to use it." "But what if they find it first?" another voice protested, trembling with fear. "They could unleash the shadow. We can't let that happen. We have to stop them," the leader said firmly. "They think they can break the pact, but they don't understand the power they're dealing with." I clenched my fists, anger boiling within me. They don't understand? They've been the ones perpetuating this cycle of fear and ignorance. I whispered fiercely to Lucas, my emotions flaring. "We can't let them win. We have to find that artifact before it's too late." "Let's move," Lucas urged, his eyes determined. "We'll find a way around them." We crept quietly through the shadows, careful to avoid detection. My heart raced as we navigated the labyrinthine corridors, each turn revealing more ancient carvings and faded murals that told stories of battles fought long ago. I could feel the weight of the past pressing down on me, urging me to continue. After what felt like an eternity, we stumbled upon a large chamber. The walls were adorned with glowing symbols that pulsed with a faint light, illuminating a pedestal in the center. On it rested a small, intricately carved box, the artifact we had been searching for. My breath caught in my throat as I realized we had found what we needed. "Claire, look!" Lucas exclaimed, pointing towards the box. "That must be it." I stepped forward cautiously, feeling an electric charge in the air. "This is it," I breathed, my eyes fixed on the box. "This is what my great-grandmother wanted to protect." As I approached, the symbols on the walls intensified, casting an ethereal glow around the chamber. I reached out to open the box, but just as my fingers brushed against the cool surface, a voice boomed from behind us. Stop right there. We turned to see the Guardians standing at the entrance, their cloaks billowing ominously. The leader stepped forward, his eyes narrowed with fury. You dare to enter this sacred space? You have no idea the consequences of your actions. We're not afraid of you. I shot back, my heart racing. We're here to finish what my family started. The shadow is not our enemy. The shadow is a curse, he retorted, taking a step closer. It will destroy you and everything you hold dear. You think you can handle its power? You're foolish to believe you can control it. We're here to set things right. Lucas interjected, stepping protectively in front of me. You don't understand what you're trying to protect. It's time for the truth to come out. The tension in the room was palpable. The Guardians exchanged glances, and I could see uncertainty flicker in their eyes. You don't know the truth, the leader spat. You're blinded by your family's history. Maybe it's time we learn the truth, I said, my voice steady. Maybe it's time the Monroe family and the Guardians of Light come together to face what has been hidden for too long. The leader hesitated, and for a moment, I thought we might be able to reason with him. But then he shook his head, a grim determination settling on his features. You're making a grave mistake. We can't let you leave with that artifact. Before I could respond, he gestured to the other Guardians, and they surged forward, their intentions clear. Lucas, I shouted, fear gripping my heart. Run, he yelled back, grabbing my hand as we made a break for it. We dashed across the chamber, dodging the Guardians' attempts to block our escape. My mind raced. We had to get the artifact, and we had to do it quickly. As we reached the entrance, I glanced back at the pedestal. We can't leave it behind. I'll hold them off, Lucas said, determination etched on his face. You get the artifact. No, we do this together, I replied fiercely, unwilling to let him take the risk alone. With a shared understanding, we both sprinted back to the pedestal. I quickly opened the box, revealing an ornate amulet that shimmered with a brilliant light. As I lifted it, I felt a surge of energy coursing through me, as if the very essence of my family's legacy was flowing into my veins. Claire, we have to go, Lucas shouted, his voice breaking through the haze of power surrounding me. But as I clutched the amulet, I felt a deep connection to it. We can't let them take it, I said, my voice steady with newfound confidence. This is our chance to confront the truth. The Guardians were closing in, but I stood my ground, feeling the weight of my ancestors behind me. You think you can take this from us? I declared, my voice echoing through the chamber. This is our legacy, and we will not be silenced. Foolish girl, the leader shouted, anger flashing in his eyes. You have no idea what you're unleashing. I don't need to understand everything, I replied defiantly. All I know is that we have the right to our own history, and we will face whatever comes next together. With that, I turned to Lucas, who was watching me with a mix of pride and apprehension. We need to do the ritual now. Just as the Guardians lunged at us, I could feel the amulet's energy pulsing in my hand. It was time to take a stand, to confront the legacy that had haunted my family for generations. Together, I shouted, and Lucas nodded, determination shining in his eyes. As the Guardians advanced, I raised the amulet high, feeling its power swell around us. This was our moment, the beginning of the end of the darkness that had plagued us for too long. We would face the shadows, confront the truth, and rewrite our family's destiny. The air around us felt thick with anticipation as Lucas and I stood in the dimly lit room, preparing ourselves for the ritual that could possibly alter the very fabric of our understanding. The ancient book lay open on the table, its pages yellowed and brittle, filled with cryptic symbols and incantations that seemed to pulse with energy. I could feel my heart racing, each beat echoing the weight of what we were about to undertake. Are you sure about this, Claire? Lucas asked, his voice low and tinged with concern. He glanced at the mirror, its surface shimmering ominously, reflecting our anxious faces. What if we're opening a door we can't close? I turned to him, searching his eyes for reassurance. We have to do this, Lucas, I need to understand what happened to my family. The shadow, the pact, it's all connected to the Monroe legacy. This is my chance to confront it. He nodded slowly, but I could see the worry etched on his features. Okay, but promise me we'll be careful. We don't know what this shadow is capable of. Taking a deep breath, I focused on the task ahead. The shadows in the room seemed to dance around us, almost as if they were alive, watching our every move. I reached for the artifact we had found earlier, an ornate amulet that felt strangely warm in my palm. It was a key piece for the ritual, one that supposedly held the power to bridge the gap between our world and whatever lay beyond the mirror. "Let's begin," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I glanced at the book, tracing my fingers over the intricate illustrations that accompanied the words. "We need to recite the incantation together. It says here that we must call upon the spirit of the shadow to reveal the truth." Lucas stepped closer, his presence grounding me. "On three, then, right?" I replied, my pulse quickening. 1, 2, 3. We spoke the words in unison, the syllables flowing from our lips like a chant that resonated deep within the room. As we recited the incantation, the atmosphere shifted, charged with an electric energy that crackled in the air. The shadows around us twisted and coiled, forming shapes that seemed almost human. I could feel the weight of the mirror drawing me in, its surface rippling like water disturbed by a stone. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the room, snuffing out the candles that flickered around us. I gasped, gripping the amulet tightly. "Lucas, what's happening?" "I don't know," he shouted over the rising wind. "Keep going. We have to finish the ritual." I forced myself to focus, reciting the final lines with a determination that surged through me. "By the light of truth and the shadows of the past, I call upon you to reveal what's hidden." As the last word left my mouth, a blinding flash of light erupted from the mirror, illuminating the room in a ghostly glow. I shielded my eyes, feeling a pull, as if the very essence of the shadow was reaching out to us. When I dared to look again, the reflection stared back at me, but it was no longer just my face I saw. The mirror showed a swirling mass of darkness, and within it, I could make out images, memories, perhaps. There I was, a little girl, watching my grandmother with wide eyes as she whispered secrets to the mirror. I felt a pang of longing. I had forgotten those moments, buried under years of family lore and whispers of curses. "Claire!" Lucas's voice broke through my reverie, pulling me back to the present. "Look!" I turned to see the shadow coalescing in front of us, forming a figure that was both familiar and unsettling. The air grew colder, and I could see the outline of a woman, her features obscured in the haze of darkness. "You seek the truth, Claire Monroe," she intoned, her voice echoing like a distant thunderstorm. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" "I am the shadow of your lineage, a guardian and a curse," she replied, her tone layered with sorrow. "You have come seeking answers, but know this, the truth is a double-edged sword." "What do you mean?" I pressed, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. "The pact made by your Basevo was not just a bargain for protection. It was a binding of fate," she explained, her form flickering like a candle flame. "Your family has always walked the line between light and shadow, and in the process, sacrifices were made." I exchanged a glance with Lucas. "Sacrifices? What kind?" The shadow hesitated, her eyes piercing through the darkness. "To protect those you love, one must confront their own fears, their own darkness. Your Basevo chose to bind me to your bloodline, believing I would shield you from harm. But in doing so, she also trapped her own lineage in a cycle of pain." I felt a knot form in my stomach. "Pain? Is that what I've inherited? This shadow?" "Yes," she answered, her voice softening. "But it is not merely a curse, Claire. It is a part of you, one that you must learn to embrace rather than fear." Lucas stepped forward, his hand resting on my shoulder. "What do we need to do to break this cycle?" The shadow's gaze shifted to him, and for a moment, I could sense a flicker of hope within the darkness. You must confront your own shadows, both of you. Only then can the pact be redefined. You must choose to accept me, to understand the strength that lies within your fears. My heart raced as I processed her words. But how? How do we confront something that terrifies us? The shadow gestured toward the mirror. Look within. Your reflections hold the key. The truth lies not only in the past, but also in the choices you make now. I hesitated, glancing at Lucas. Are you ready for this? He nodded, determination etched on his face. As long as we do it together. Taking a deep breath, I stepped closer to the mirror, my reflection warping as I peered into its depths. The images swirled again, revealing moments of my life where I had felt weak, vulnerable, overshadowed by expectations. I saw the fear of failing my family, the anxiety of not living up to their legacy. The shadow was right. I had always tried to suppress these feelings, burying them deep inside. Claire! Lucas's voice broke through, grounding me. Whatever we see, we face it together. I turned to him, grateful for his unwavering support. Together, I echoed, feeling a newfound strength surge within me. As we faced our reflections, I felt the shadow's presence grow stronger behind us. Embrace the darkness, she urged. Only then will you find the truth. I took a step closer to the mirror, feeling its cool surface against my fingertips. The images began to shift, revealing not just my weaknesses but also moments of resilience. I saw myself standing up for what I believed in, moments where I had fought against adversity, and the love I had for my family despite the burdens of expectation. See, Lucas whispered, his voice filled with encouragement. You are stronger than you think. I nodded, feeling the warmth of his belief wrap around me like a shield. I am more than just my fears. I am my legacy. With that realization, I focused on the shadow, feeling its energy intertwining with my own. I accept you as part of me, I said, my voice strong and unwavering. You are not my enemy. You are my guardian. The shadow shivered, her form shifting as if reacting to my words. Then let us redefine the pact. The room trembled as the mirror pulsed with light, casting shadows that danced around us. The air crackled with energy, and I felt an overwhelming sense of liberation wash over me. The darkness was no longer something to be feared. It was a part of my journey, a testament to my strength. As the ritual reached its peak, I closed my eyes, surrendering to the power of the moment. The mirror reflected not just my face, but the entirety of my being. Flaws, fears, strengths, and all. I felt Lucas's hand squeeze mine, a silent promise that we would emerge from this experience changed, stronger, and unafraid. Together, I whispered again, feeling the truth resonate within me. The shadows no longer a burden, but a source of power that I could wield. The light enveloped us, and I knew that we were on the brink of something transformative, a journey that would lead us to redefine what it meant to be a Monroe. I opened my eyes, ready to embrace whatever came next. As candles flickered around me, their soft glow casting dancing shadows against the walls of the dimly lit room, I stood in the center, my heart racing, the weight of the moment pressing down on me like a heavy shroud. Lucas was beside me, his presence a steadfast anchor in the whirlpool of emotions that threatened to engulf me. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and I could feel the tension vibrating between us as we prepared to complete the ritual that had become our last hope. Are you ready? Lucas asked, his voice steady, but I could see the concern etched in the lines of his brow. His blue eyes searched mine, seeking reassurance. I nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at the edges of my resolve. I have to be, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. This is our chance to understand everything. The shadow, the pact, my family's legacy. He took my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. We'll do this together, Claire. No matter what happens, we face it side by side. Taking a deep breath, I focused on the ornate mirror before us, its surface reflecting not just our images, but the weight of generations that had come before me. The shadow within it pulsed like a living entity, its dark form writhing and shifting, as if it were aware of our intentions. I could feel its energy, a mix of fear and fury, and I knew that whatever lay ahead would challenge everything I thought I understood about myself and my family. As we began the incantation, the words flowed from my lips, ancient syllables that felt both foreign and familiar. With each phrase, the room seemed to vibrate, the air thickening with anticipation. The shadow in the mirror darkened, swirling violently, and I could hear whispers, fragments of voices lost to time. "Claire," I heard Lucas's voice cut through the chaos. "Focus on why we're here. Remember what you saw in the mirror before. The truth is waiting for you." I closed my eyes, picturing the fleeting shadow that had first captivated my attention. It wasn't just a malevolent force. It was a reflection of something deeper, something more profound. "I'm ready," I murmured, and as I opened my eyes, the shadow surged forward, swallowing the light in the room. In that moment, I felt a pull, a gravitational force that drew me closer to the mirror. The world around me began to dissolve, the candles flickering out one by one until darkness enveloped me. I was no longer in the room with Lucas. I was inside the mirror itself, surrounded by an abyss of swirling shadows. "Claire!" Lucas's voice echoed from somewhere beyond the darkness, but I couldn't respond. I was entranced, my senses overwhelmed by the rush of images that flashed before me. Memories danced in the void, fragmented and disjointed. I saw my great-grandmother's face, her features twisted by anguish and determination. I felt her pain, the weight of the choices she had made, the sacrifices she had endured. "I did it for you," her voice whispered, resonating in my mind, "to protect you from the darkness." Images shifted, and I was transported to moments from my childhood. I saw myself, a small girl peering into the mirror, a sense of wonder mixed with fear. The shadow loomed behind me, always present, always watching. It was never just a reflection. It was a part of me, a guardian in its own right. Suddenly, the shadow took form, coalescing into a figure that mirrored my own. It was me, but not quite. A darker version, with eyes that glimmered with a fierce light. "You've ignored me for too long, Claire," it said, its voice a haunting echo of my own. "You've run from the truth, but I am not your enemy." "What do you mean?" I gasped, my heart pounding in my chest. "You're the shadow, the darkness. I am your strength, your resilience," it replied, stepping closer. "You've always feared what I represented, but without me, you are incomplete. I am the pain of your ancestors, the burden they carried. Accept me, and you will understand." "But the pact," I stammered, the fragments of my great-grandmother's sacrifice flooding my mind. "She made a deal to protect the family from you. Aren't you meant to bring destruction?" The shadow shook its head, a cascade of dark energy swirling around us like a tempest. "No, Claire, the pact was never about destruction. It was a promise to guard against the darkness outside, the true threat. I was bound to protect you, but I can't do that if you refuse to acknowledge me." I took a step back, my mind racing. "What about the Guardians? They said you needed to be destroyed. They fear what they don't understand," the shadow replied, its voice calm yet powerful. "They see me as a threat because they don't know the truth. I am a part of your legacy, just as much as you are. Embrace me, and you will find the power to break the cycle of fear and shame that has haunted your family for generations." As the words settled in my mind, I felt the weight of everything, the fear of the unknown, the burden of my family's history, the shadow that had followed me for so long. I looked into the shadow's eyes and saw not malice, but a reflection of my own struggles, my own fears. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice trembling. "What if I can't handle it? What if it consumes me?" "It won't," the shadow assured me. "You have already faced so much. You've shown strength that your ancestors would be proud of. You don't have to fight me. You just need to accept that I am a part of you." Taking a deep breath, I closed my eyes again, focusing on the image of my family. Their pain, their struggles, but also their resilience. "I accept you," I whispered, my heart racing as I opened my eyes to meet the shadow's gaze once more. I accept my past, my fears, and the strength that comes with it. As my words hung in the air, a brilliant light erupted from the shadow, enveloping us both. I felt warmth wash over me, dissolving the darkness that had once seemed so suffocating. The shadow transformed, its form shifting from dark to light, revealing a figure radiant and powerful. My great-grandmother, her presence a beacon of strength. "Thank you, Claire," she said, her voice echoing with love and pride. "You've broken the chains that bound us. Together, we can rewrite our story." The light surrounded us, and I felt the weight of generations lifting from my shoulders. The shadow, now a luminous guardian, wrapped around me like a protective embrace. I could feel Lucas's presence beside me, his unwavering support bolstering my newfound strength. "Claire!" His voice pulled me back to our reality, the dim light of the room flooding back as the mirror shimmered before us. "What happened? Are you okay?" I think I understand now," I said, breathless. "The shadow, it's not my enemy. It's my strength, my family's legacy. We need to honor it, not destroy it." Lucas's eyes widened in realization, his features softening with understanding. "So we don't have to fight the Guardians? We can show them the truth." "Yes," I affirmed, feeling a newfound confidence blossom within me. "We can break the cycle of fear. Together, we'll show them that the shadow is a protector, not a threat." As I turned back to the mirror, I saw my reflection, but it was different now, clearer, more vibrant. The shadow stood beside me, not as a grotesque figure, but as a symbol of resilience and strength. With a determined nod, I took Lucas's hand, and together we stepped forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but we were united in purpose and understanding. "Let's go," I said, my voice steady and full of conviction. "It's time to redefine what it means to be a Monroe." As we left the room, I glanced back at the mirror one last time. The shadow within smiled back at me, a silent promise of strength and protection. I was no longer afraid. I had embraced my past, my fears, and the legacy that came with it. And with Lucas by my side, I knew we were ready to face whatever challenges awaited us. Together, we would write a new chapter in our family's story, one filled with light, love, and unwavering strength.